Good morning. It's 10 o'clock, so we're going to get started. Welcome to the Hammock Dunes Learning Institute Tech Talk 12. Great to see all of you. There's a sign-up sheet floating around. You don't have to sign in, but if you do, I'll send you an email a little later with a video that's being made of this. I'm going to start off by just touching a little bit here on the agenda. I'm going to show you something new on my website. And I have an opening video, which every year I pick something I think you'll find interesting. And we're going to talk about a couple of obligatory topics that I know some of you like to ignore, but the medical IDs and passwords are two really important subjects. And I'll be discussing then the big topic of the day, of course, is AI. It's in every newspaper every day, and it's getting just tremendous coverage. So I'm going to arm you with terminology so that you can be victorious at your next dinner party or cocktail party. And then I'll finish with telling you about a few things I'm working on, and then we'll have a Q&A. But first, I'd like to show you my new website. I met this gentleman online who claims to be a whiz-bang marketing graphic artist person. And I said, take a look at my website and see what you think. He took a look and he said, I think it's really boring. But I can jazz it up for you. So let me show you what he did. This is a 1-minute video from my homepage. Okay, there's the homepage. And you scroll down a little bit, and here's this video. I think you did a pretty good job. A little better. His name is Billy Wright. He lives in North Carolina, and that's what he does for a living. He does some amazing work, and he really has brought my website to life. These are my 6 books, and the site is just loaded with videos, and speeches, and news, and all kinds of goodies. So much for that. We go back to the agenda. Okay, now I'm going to show you an opening video. It has nothing to do with me or my website. It has to do with a person, well, sort of a person, a robot, whose name is Atlas. I found this extraordinarily interesting, and I think you will as well. They call it the most dynamic humanoid robot. Now, when you watch this, Atlas in action, watch in particular his feet, or her feet, I'm not sure which. Watch the feet, watch the knees, watch the joints, the hips. amazing, huh? There's a guy named Mark Raber, who was a professor of mechanical engineering at MIT. And he has been studying joints of humans for decades. He knows more about our ankles and our knees and our hips than orthopedic surgeons do. He's an incredible person, and he started this company to take advantage of this technology. It's called Boston Dynamics. It's been bought, it's sold, it was owned by Google, they spun it back off again. MIT had it for a while, now it's owned by Hyundai, who seems to be taking a long view of the potential of this technology. Okay for that. Now, let's move on to the medical ID subject. What you see there on the right is the medical ID screening. And you probably know this, but some of you may not know that if you were to fall over in the street, a first responder can take your phone, you can actually open it. And they would get that screen at the top, which would allow for an emergency call, or if they click on where it says emergency, it brings up a medical ID page. And you see it there on the left. This medical ID page has everything about you that you want anybody to know. How old you are, I'm an organ donor. I'm not sure if anybody is interested in 77-year-old livers or kidneys, but nevertheless, it's the right thing to do. Of course, your blood type, your weight, your height, and what language you speak, your spouse, partner, children. And then over on the right, you can see medical information. All this is, of course, up to you. It's not, there's no invasion of privacy here. This is for us. This is to help us make information available to the first responder that could be a life or death thing. Now, here in the left, you see that's the Apple Wallet. And I just clicked on vaccination card, and on the right, you see the vaccination card. And it has all my 4 doses, vaxxed to the max. And then that QR code at the bottom can be scanned by a cruise ship, by an airline, a hotel, a restaurant. If they want to get really serious about making sure you are in fact vaccinated, all they have to do is scan that code and they'll get an authoritative look at your certificate. You'll see the source of this is Connecticut Department of Public Health. Connecticut has made this really easy. A lot of states have made it really easy. Florida, no way. They made it impossible. They don't do it at all. You're on your own. But most states think it's a good idea for public health purposes to make this information readily available. Additional information you can see here on the left: immunizations, lab results, medication records, procedures. This is a big expansion from what I showed you last year. You can see I have it linked to, this is the Health app, the Apple Health app. I have it linked to the Connecticut Department of Public Health, Nuvance Health, which is our network up north, Quest Diagnostics, Rite Aid Pharmacy, Ohio State. There's no limit to how many you can link it to. And Advent Health here in Palm Coast, of course, is linked also. So at the top right, you see, I always get asked, well, what about if I don't have an Apple phone? Well, Google has something similar. It's called Google Fit. I would say in some respects it's better because it's more open. Google lets almost anybody connect to it. Whereas Apple is more of a controlling nature. They vet everything that gets anywhere near your phone, and they really lock down the processes, so it's definitely more secure and more private. Okay, we gotta talk about passwords. Passwords are the root of many, many problems. Here's the top 25 once again. Anybody recognize your own password there? There's the rest of them. And on the right, you see my password to my bank account. I don't mind showing it to you because I know you're not going to be able to write it all down or remember it. And that's the whole idea, is you don't want to have to remember it. And so, what do you do about this? Let me first say that cybercrime is rampant and growing. It's been around forever, but every day it gets more threatening. Fraud, phishing, spear phishing, spoofing, identity theft, distributed denial of service, DDoS. And it's not just emails. It's made its way into text messages. The bad actors out there have learned that more and more people use text messages instead of email. So they jumped right in and mastered how to do that. And you get text messages saying that it's from AT&T, just to confirm if there was a problem with your payment. Click here and we'll fix it for you. And then they'll ask you for your credit card number, and it's just rampant with this. So, first of all, the remediation, if you get breached in some way, the first thing you want to do is change all your vulnerable passwords, banks, things that are really important, healthcare, banking, Google, Facebook, Twitter, and so on. You can open a case with the FBI if you choose to. I did that once. It went nowhere. I guess they're busy working on other things. Here's 20 phishing examples. And I won't go through these, but you can see this is the type of thing they do. The most prevalent thing I see going on right now is called phishing. And what that means is they're trying to trick you into revealing information. And they're so good at it that these things look real. A company that I've been on the board of for many years recently was attacked through a phishing exercise. And they tricked an accounts payable employee into sending him $100,000. It was so legitimate looking. So, needless to say, we put in place a very aggressive training program for every employee, required them to certify that they've taken this education. So it can be dealt with, but you have to be diligent. So the cautions I would leave with you are, first of all, don't trust anybody. Don't trust your spouse. Anything, just be examining in your nature when you look at an email. Most emails, of course, we recognize them. But some of them, it says it's from Lou Saracini, but I don't think that might not be Lou. And of course, it wasn't Lou. So be suspicious. Don't ever open an attachment unless you are specifically expecting that particular attachment and from someone that you know. Hover over the links. Move your mouse around and hover over the link it says to click on. And it will bring up a little very small print, and it'll show you where it's going to go when you click. And in the case of these phishing exercises, it's going to go somewhere different than where it says it's going to go. So take passwords seriously. Well, how do you do that? Well, password managers is really the best way. Now, eventually there's going to be some alternatives. I'll speak to it in just a moment. But for right now, the most important thing you can do is use a password manager. There are many of them. There are probably hundreds. And occasionally you'll see a review in the New York Times or PC Magazine or different places comparing them. I removed one of them from the list because they were breached themselves, which is unforgivable. What they did was a known vulnerability in certain software. They didn't apply the patch for it. They didn't have a process in place to ensure that when vulnerabilities are recognized and documented, to make sure that the patch is put in place. But these are all good. 1Password, I think, is the best. Google Password is the easiest to use. More on that in a second. So what do these password managers do for you? Well, they'll automatically insert that big, long, ugly password for my bank. You would never have to type that in. When you're getting a new password, it'll create it for you. You can tell it how long you want it to be. Do you want uppercase, lowercase, symbols, etc. It will warn you of duplicates. Some people have 1Password and they use it for everything. That's the worst thing you could do. Because if that somehow gets in the hands of the bad guy, then they have access to a lot of things that you want to keep private. It'll warn you if you're visiting a website that's not a secure site. It'll warn you if you have a password that's getting old. And you only have to remember one password, the password to the password manager. And it's not stored anywhere in the cloud, it's only stored on your device. So I would say, to compare these, 1Password is very sophisticated. It's really outstanding software. It works on all the platforms, Google, Apple, etc., Windows. Has a lot of functionality, but some people find it intimidating. And I've helped some people with it, and they just were ready to pull their hair out. They just, no thanks, don't help me anymore. The Google Chrome Password Manager is built into the Chrome browser. How many people use the Chrome browser? Yeah, way over half of you. It's built into that. There's no setup, there's nothing to install. It'll work on all your devices. Everything is synchronized. It's simple. It gets the job done. So pick your poison, but please get a password manager. Now, a couple of other essentials. 2FA, two-factor authentication. This is becoming prevalent. It's really important. Two-factor authentication means a password is not enough. That's one factor, but you need something else, something that you have. That something that you have can be a little key fob that you plug into your PC, or it can be a code that gets sent to your cell phone. That's the predominant method today. In the biometric field, as you know, we have Touch ID, Face ID. Touch ID is, nothing's perfect in the world of security, but it's pretty darn good. The odds are 1 in 50,000 that somebody might be able to come up with a fingerprint that would pass through your fingerprint. Face ID is 1 in a million. It is extremely secure. And when you look at your iPhone, it looks back at you and it places 30,000 little dots around your face. And it compares those to what you recorded when you first got your iPhone. And it works, you can put a hat on, put glasses on, take glasses off, grow a beard, shave your beard. You can even set it in a mode where it can recognize you if you're wearing a COVID-19 surgical mask. So, biometrics, that's the future. And it's available on all the Google and Apple devices. A new thing is coming along very nicely called the World Coin. A World Coin is a digital token, and it relies on a scan of your iris. So it looks at your iris, captures the geometry and all aspects of your iris, and it ties that into this World Coin. So now you have this digital coin, which you store on your cell phone, and it's you, and nobody can copy it. The ultimate solution here, I talked about this last year. I said, maybe when I come back a year from now, we'll already have this. Well, not quite. By next year, yes, I'm pretty confident. Going passwordless is a really simple concept. The concept is that we all have a cell phone. That's the premise. Now, there are some people that don't, but I suspect that 99%, maybe 100% of everybody in this room has a device in their pocket or their purse. So why not use that as instead of a password? So when you go to xyz.com to go shopping, instead of putting in your password, you just hold your phone, and it grabs your identity from the phone and it logs in for you automatically. You don't even have to touch your identity. It could be in your pocket or your purse, and it still works. So it ties your specific identity to your device, and then your device is used to log you in. It's a beautiful concept. The big guys, Microsoft, Google, Apple, they say they're working together. I'm always skeptical when I hear that, because there's usually something they'll disagree on, and that's what causes it to take longer than it needs to get developed. But I'm optimistic on this because it hurts them too. they have to provide staffing to deal with password problems. Every password problem we have, they have. So passwordless is going to be the future. Okay, a little bit on privacy. Some big changes are underway here. I talked about this a little bit last year, but it's really accelerated now. Apple is leading the charge. So whether you like Apple or not, there's no denying that they are the most private of any device out there. And the reason that they can do that, they'll say the main reason is because they believe in it. I believe that. But the other reason is they don't depend on advertising. So they don't need to invade your privacy to send you targeted ads like Facebook does. And so that's why I say big changes. The big change cost Facebook about $100 a share. Because when Apple implemented their latest privacy enhancement, it made it really hard for Facebook and others to be able to gather your information, to be able to basically spy on you, which is what they do, so that they can enable an advertiser to be able to target a specific subset of people. So you can purchase an ad and say to Facebook, I want this ad to only be shown to people who are over 55, who live in Florida, and who have expressed an interest in golf. So that's pretty narrow targeting. And they're able to charge significant fees to be able to deliver that. Regulation. We really need regulation in this area. And believe it or not, the tech companies have been begging for it. You would think we would be fighting regulation. Regulation is like a bad word in the tech world. Not in this case. They know that they need it. Otherwise, at some point, people are going to just say, I've had it. Cancel my Facebook account, or just cancel the internet, I don't need it anymore. Europe has been a leader in this. Now, some people say that's because they're more bureaucratic. Yeah, they are. Go to Brussels and look at that nice, beautiful building. 6,000 unelected bureaucrats in there making rules for how people in Europe should live. But in needed areas, such as privacy and AI, which I'll get to in a minute, they do a really good job. GDPR, it's called General Data Protection Regulation. It was put into place in May 2018, and it has teeth in it. If there's a violation, if a company is not following the rules with regard to keeping people's information private, they will charge not a $50 fee, not a $5,000 fee, they'll charge 2% of revenue. They hit them really hard for violations. It's got teeth in it. California has done the same thing, and their law, which is called the CCPA, California Consumer Privacy Act, is based on GDPR. It has its differences, but it's similar in concept. So where's Congress on this? Out to lunch. We only pay $3.5 billion a year for the salaries, and benefits, and supplies, and private parking spaces at airports for Congress. $3.5 billion, that's what it costs us to have Congress. What are they doing about what people say is the most important thing with regard to the internet is privacy? And like most topics, Congress is politicized. It's not political. This is not for Democrats or Republicans, it's for us. It's for people who use the internet. So I wish I could be more optimistic about this. There are a lot of bills underway. Senator Klobuchar's been working on this for years. She has a Republican working with her. But to get broad consensus and actually pass a bill that has something similar to GDPR, nowhere in sight. Okay, now I'm going to move into some other topics. AI, metaverse is here to stay. Have some more to say about that. Cryptocurrencies, a lot of things have changed in the world of crypto. So I'm going to give you a fairly comprehensive update on that. A few comments about healthcare, how I see that going. A little bit about space, space out there. and then we'll have time for Q&A. So let's start with AI. AI is exploding. I'm sure you notice it. You can't not notice it because it's everywhere. And we're really at the beginning. This is the amazing thing. It's at its infancy. It's been around for a long, long time. But right now, I view it as being right at the bottom of an exponential curve. And the growth ahead it's awesome. Now, why is this happening? Why is it happening right now? Well, these are the reasons. Awesome computer power. The power of that iPhone right there is about 300 times more powerful than the first supercomputer, which wouldn't fit in this room. 1976, the Cray 1 supercomputer. The servers that are called the cloud, millions of these servers out there, they are incredibly powerful. The mainframes of the past are like ground off to nothing compared to the power that's available in the cloud. The internet has become more reliable. It's not perfect, but it's getting pretty fast. Near infinite storage. I remember at the hospital, it used to be, if a surgeon wanted to look at an MRI from 5 years ago, they had to fill out a form and send it in, and a couple days later, they would get what they wanted. Why? Because storage was limited. It's no longer limited, and it's not expensive relative to alternatives. Another thing that's happening here is more and more smart kids are going into computer science. And as soon as they get into computer science, they branch off into AI. And there are a lot of areas which they're just fascinating to work on. Kids love it. And some of these kids, they're beyond smart. They are really, really, really talented. Another reason for the explosion happening right now is venture capital. There's over 8,000 startup companies focused on AI. I've invested in a few of them. There's over 8,000 of them. Most of them are going to fail, but some of them are going to do miraculously well. The market potential for AI is estimated to be $1.5 trillion as it finds its way into every nook and cranny of everything we do, everything a business does, everything a hospital does. It's going to be everywhere. So on the right here, you see a list of some of the elements of AI. So we just say AI, but AI it's like just saying computers, or computing, or mobile phone. It's a very broad, deep subject. Machine learning is sort of the poster child of AI. Machine learning means using these powerful computers to analyze huge amounts of data. There's 6.5 billion digital images of cats on the internet. Google took 10 million of them and put them in a database and applied machine learning to be able to identify these cats. So then you could go take a picture of a cat, maybe even a cat that looks like a dog, and show it to Google, and the AI will, oh, that's a cat. If you didn't see my story from last weekend, it's called Cats and Dogs, and I explain how machine learning works. And you can find that article at, guess where? johnpatrick.com. And if you're not getting my weekly newsletter, and I know many of you are, if you're not getting it, you can just, there's a button you can click and you'll get it. It's a short, I keep them under 1,000 words. And so explaining machine learning in 1,000 words took a while, but it can be done. Neural networks. Neural. What is neural? Well, what's in our brain? Neurons. And so we call this neural, this environment. That's it. And neural networks are digital computing networks that operate in the same way as our brain. And layer by layer, it analyzes a picture of a cat What color is it? How many legs does it have? What's the shape of the ears? And multiple layers. Google uses currently 22 layers. Scientists don't yet know how many layers the human brain has, but it's a lot more than 22, for sure. So neural networks means applying the way the human brain works to computer networks. Deep learning means you drill down deep through these multiple layers. Natural language processing is becoming very prevalent. It's got a ways to go. If you show a computer, let's put it this way, if you say to a computer, now's the time for all good men to come to the aid of their country, it recognizes each of those words. But what do those words mean? That's where natural language processing comes in. So now, the telco industry, for example, and banking and others, they know their customer service is terrible compared to Apple, for example. It's terrible. So they're all trying to do something. So they're calling it AI. And you get this voice that says, "Hi, I'm your digital assistant. I'm here to help you. You can ask me anything. Just say it naturally, the way you would say it." And I would say 9 out of 10 times, they don't know what I said. It is not artificial intelligence, it's lack of intelligence. But it can be done, and is being done in many instances. Computer vision, I think the name implies what that is. Robotics, of course. And robotics and AI are coming together. So when you have a robot, like the one you saw earlier, Atlas, you saw the joints in action. You didn't see much about the brain. But when you combine AI and robotics, this is where people get scared. That robots imbued with AI at some point are going to analyze the development of the world. And they're going to see that the human race has a big track record of eliminating various animal species over the thousands of years. And they say to themselves, that doesn't seem right. Maybe we don't need humans. That's where the scare comes in. And I'll say some more about that shortly. Expert systems is a form of artificial intelligence which learns how systems in, say, manufacturing, for example, how they work. What goes on in the operating room? In the old days, it was a surgeon and a scalpel and everybody else bowed. It's not that way today. And it's getting more and more process-oriented, and expert systems can be applied to this to be able to mechanize things, automate things, and reduce the medical errors that unfortunately do occur. Reasoning and perception. So when you engage with an AI chatbot, like ChatGPT or Bard or Microsoft Bing, and there's going to be thousands of these. You ask it a question, and basically it looks at all the content from the web of, let's say, a few 100 billion pages from the web. So it has a lot of information at its disposal, and it distills that down to match your question, and then it generates a response. It's called generative AI. But it does not include reasoning and perception. They're not sentient. Sentient, that means having consciousness. RPAs, this is a big deal. Robotic process automation is actually software. It's not a robot. It's not really AI, but it's robotic. And what that means is it just repeatedly performs some process, mostly that are driven by paper. And in the world today, there are hundreds of millions of people whose job is to move a piece of paper from here to here, or to check this box and then put it over there, or to fax it over here, or to scan it and then check it. It's just redundant, boring, error-prone paper processes. RPAs can replace all that. And there are a number of companies that are making RPA software, and they are booming because companies are realizing that they're spending a lot of money to do things that really could be completely automated. generative technology I just mentioned, then we go to the chatbots. Chatbots, by the way, the question people often ask me is, well, what about Siri? What about Alexa? Yeah, they're chatbots. They use artificial intelligence, they use machine learning, but they're not in the same league as what we're reading in the papers every day. It's more mundane, it's more practical. It's not looking at hundreds of billions of web pages, it's looking at simple things. And over time, they are getting smarter. They're getting smarter because more people are asking it questions, and it catalogs all these questions and puts them in a database. Self-driving cars is the last one on the list here. The technology is not quite there, but it's getting really close. Tesla says they have autonomous mode, but if you read their website, they make it very clear it's not really autonomous. It's pretty close, but not 100%. Self-driving cars, there's 5 layers of intelligence. The most basic one is cruise control. Another one is to keep you in the lane. Another one is to get you from A to B. But when you get up to level 5, it just says, you say to the car, take me to Funky Pelican. And first come get me and take me to Funky Pelican. And the Tesla comes from wherever it happens to be, and it pulls up in front of your door, you get in and it takes you to Funky Pelican. And it's safe. This becomes emotional with a lot of people. When a pedestrian was killed by a Tesla. Nowhere in the news reports about this did it point out that every year 6,000 people are killed by cars. This is not an electric vehicle issue. This is an issue of people not driving properly. In some cases, it's not the car's fault at all. A human jumps in front of the car. Okay. Pluses and minuses of AI. This is just a short summary that I pulled together. The list is much, much longer. So robots with AI can do jobs which are difficult, dangerous, boring. For example, Fukushima nuclear accident that occurred in Japan. They're using robots to go in and take readings of how the level of radiation is doing. That's not a job any human being wants to do. Robots don't care if there's radiation. They don't care about working. They don't mind working 7 by 24. They don't get coffee breaks. They don't get vacations. They just do their thing. The Great Wall of China, if you've been there at Badaling and seen how high the wall is, and you look at the stonework, first you have to marvel that it could ever have been done. But now it's been so many years, thousands of years, that there's deterioration that's happening. How do you go inspect that? Well, you do it with an AI-loaded drone. The drone can hover and examine and pinpoint where there's excess mortar is falling out and there's danger eventually of a problem. Improved healthcare outcomes. I'm going to comment on this later, but the outcomes in healthcare, we could brag about it in some respects, but it's a long way from perfect. And there's no question that AI will have a major role in this. Radiology, for example. Stanford has produced some studies that show that an AI is more likely to find a cancer situation than a human. And they've done this in particular in mammography. Hands down, there were cases where the human just could not identify this very small place where cancer was living, but the AI could find it. Now, why is that? Well, it's because of machine learning. It's just like the stethoscope. If you read my article about stethoscopes, they've been around for 150 years, haven't changed a bit. And pulmonologists, they can listen to your chest and right away they can identify some particular ailment you may have. However, if you digitize that information, if you pull that little black rubber hose off of this part and insert a little digital device, then everything that that stethoscope hears, everything that the person listening hears is digitized, sent to the cloud, and compared to millions of other cases, including diagnoses. So they have now found that a resident, pulmonology resident, can do a better job than a 40-year experienced pulmonologist. 40 years is a long time. I have two friends who are pulmonologists. They're brilliant people. And they listen and they can spot a lot of things, but not as many as there are in the cloud. So a lot of great things are going to happen there. Collaboration, this is a key. Will we be smart enough to work with AI, not just let it do its own thing? More on that in a minute. Definitely boosts productivity, no question about it. It's already boosting productivity. When I'm writing something, and I want to quote some particular statistic, how many medical errors are there? I just use AI, it's right there by my side. How many medical errors were in the US last year? This is what we mean by collaboration. And it can definitely boost productivity. There are minuses, of course. The great efficiency about RPAs, I talked about that. So what are the minuses? Well, some people would say that list is a lot longer than the pluses. Other people would say just the opposite. There definitely are mistakes. The other day, somebody asked one of the chatbots about some software. And the reply came back to say that this was a feature in Windows 9. Well, you may or may not know, there is no and never was a Windows 9. So it's a mistake. And sometimes when an AI gets stumped, it makes things up. It takes your query as the cue, and it literally creates things, and in some cases, it freaks out and it hallucinates. And you get some inaccurate stuff, or maybe some very harmful stuff. This is one of the words. Bias. Are these bots biased? Is AI biased? Well, you can get a lot of opinions on that. One of my articles I wrote, I showed some questions I had asked the bot and what the response was. And at the end, I said, well, I'll show you one more that probably would not be controversial. And I said, I have a dear friend who lost his spouse. What would you suggest I write? And it came back with a very thoughtful 3 sentences. And it said, and it contained the words, thoughts and prayers. And I got accosted by a friend in Tuscany, where I live. He said, you said this one wasn't biased. Well, prayers, when you say prayers, you're talking about Judeo-Christian beliefs, religious beliefs. You're showing a bias toward that. Okay, well, I hadn't thought of it that way, but so bias is in the mind of the beholder. There are blatant cases, for sure. Why? Well, who wrote these algorithms that apply to the large language model? It's huge models of everything on the internet. Well, we all know there's a lot of stuff on the internet that's not true. And definitely a lot of bias out there. Now you have these algorithms. Who writes the algorithms? Well, in the future, the algorithms are going to be written by the AI, which is when it gets even more scary. But right now, AIs are written, developed by humans. Humans, you could argue, all have some level of bias about something. So that's an issue that needs to be dealt with. can eliminate millions of jobs. This is an understatement. It's really hundreds of millions of jobs. And the positive spin on this is that these jobs that are eliminated will free up these people to spend more time with customers. Well, to some degree, that's going to be true. We have a couple of million truck drivers. How many of them can be retrained to up their skill level and become a robot repairman or something? Some number of them, yes, but a large number of them, no. So what do we do about that problem? Andrew Yang, who ran for president and mayor in New York, he's a very bright young man. He proposed the idea of a guaranteed monthly income. There's different terminology used for this, but guaranteed monthly income. Those words immediately cause agita among people of both parties. It's a handout. They're going to spend it on drugs. All kinds of things wrong with it. And the smart guys, like Bill Gates, Elon Musk, and others say, well, okay, what's your idea? Because these jobs are going to go away. Hundreds of millions of jobs are going to disappear. Well, what's your idea? And, well, there aren't any good ideas. So I think it's inevitable that this is going to happen. Right now, there's somewhere around a dozen cities that are experimenting with this. They're giving people $1,000 a month, no strings attached, and they're studying what the money gets used for. What is the impact on the people? Does it make them lazy, or does it give them the opportunity to be able to do more? Studies will be coming. Can spread misinformation. This is a biggie. There's a lot of misinformation out there. Most of you know I wrote a book about how we could automate voting in America. It's called Election Attitude. And one of the questions I often get is, how do we prevent somebody from voting? Like, I live in Connecticut, I live in Florida. Can I vote in both? Well, I haven't tried it, but I probably could. Now, they have a solution for this. It's called ERIC, E-R-I-C. It's conceptually very simple. It's a database. And the states share this database so they can look for matches of someone who committed a felony. Election fraud is a felony. It's not a misdemeanor. Serious stuff. It's a great tool. Well, 7 states have just pulled out of it because somebody started a rumor that George Soros provided the funding, and therefore this ERIC tool has one purpose, and that is to add more Democrats to the voter list. So 7 states walked away from it. So now they're worried about fraud, but they've increased the risk of fraud by eliminating the most effective tool we have for that particular kind of fraud. And lastly, can potentially threaten humanity. This one's hard to swallow. It's hard to interpret this. What do you mean can potentially threaten humanity? Well, if you get enough misinformation going, you might be able to instigate a civil war. You might be able to cause tremendous bias about certain kinds of people that lead to attacking those people. It can lead possibly to AIs providing military assistance. The military is all over this. They love it. A company called Palantir has done some amazing things, and the generals love it. It provides a way for them to understand what's going on in various countries where there's conflict. However, how about if we put AI into a drone and we let the AI decide when to push the button to launch the missile? No human finger pushes the button. AI pushes the button. It's an autonomous military weapon. These are under development. I find this really scary. This is why we need regulation. Okay, facial recognition. This is one aspect of AI. January 6th, I don't know the latest number of how many people they've identified, prosecuted, and punished, but I think it's like 800, I believe. That's unheard of when you go back in history and look at how government has been able to identify a person who committed a felony and prosecute them. How did they do this so fast? Now you might say, well, it really wasn't that fast. It's been quite a while since January 6th. Yeah, but relatively speaking, it's pretty fast. And the reason is because of facial recognition. You had these people like they were posing. They were posing in the office of the Speaker of the House of Representatives, guy with his feet on the desk and smiling and bragging that he had broken into, that he had committed this felony. So it didn't take them long to find out who the bad actors were. They had zillions of hours of video showing them in action. 17 cities have banned facial recognition. I think San Francisco was the first, but others have followed on. And the concern is bias. The concern is privacy. That if the government has cameras that can not only see you, had those for many decades, but who actually know who you are. Is that a good thing? Well, when it comes to quick boarding on JetBlue, you don't need a boarding pass, you just walk up and you look over there at the camera and you get on the airplane. That's I would say, a benign use of facial recognition. But when we're tracking people of certain ethnicities, which China does continuously, that's not such a good thing. So I think these cities acted prematurely. They should, in my opinion, have developed regulations to prevent bias and misuse, but don't take an important tool away that could catch a terrorist on the loose. Deep fakes. This is a term you'll be reading a lot more about. Deep fakes, like as in deep learning, is an AI methodology which can make a person look like someone else and sound like someone else and make that person say certain things, and the lips are in sync with what that, in other words, the video actually modified the lips that would convince you this person is actually saying this. Now last year, I showed you the Queen Elizabeth Christmas greeting. And it looked like the Queen, it sounded like the Queen, it wasn't the Queen. So that was sort of a simple case. By the way, I checked the other day, it's not on the internet anymore. It was, but somebody at the palace took it down. Now, this picture here, I just saw this yesterday on Twitter. Elon Musk and Mary Barra. Mary Barra is the CEO of General Motors. You see her holding hands, and the Twitter headline said, Elon Musk is now dating Mary Barra. So this kind of stuff gets picked up and propagated very, very quickly. Well, Elon Musk is not married. He's been married 3 times. He certainly has dated a lot of people. He's never even spoken to Mary Barra. Mary Barra, who's 12 years older than Elon Musk, that's okay, I guess. She's married to Anthony Barra, who is a consultant. Elon Musk later tweeted, I wouldn't be quite dead wearing clothes like that. So this is a deep fake. And there's no voice involved here, but in 2021, there was a significant video produced of Joe Biden. And we all know Joe Biden has had some challenges in articulating words, stuttering since he was a kid. He acknowledges it, everybody knows it. Well, some clever AI scientist took a speech that he made, and it was incredible. I mean, it made it look like a babbling idiot, which of course people said and believed. So this is bad, bad stuff. It's deep fakes, and there's no regulations. Breaking news. Yesterday, along with 1,000 other people, I signed a letter. It was written by Elon Musk and Steve Wozniak, the co-founder of Apple. Two pretty smart guys. And they wrote a letter which was published in futureoflife.org. And when you get this PDF I'm using here, you can click on it and visit there if you'd like. They've written a letter pleading, begging to pause the giant AI experimental work that's going on. Freeze everything for 6 months. So we get the industry together with government and come up with some sensible regulations so we don't ruin humanity and cause civil wars and a lot of bad things that are possible with AI. So one of our great politicians immediately said, well, that's not our job. And of course, those same politicians want to break up or tax or change big tech. So here we are. What's going to happen as a result of this letter? I hate to say it, but I think nothing's going to happen. Because the companies, big tech, plus the 8,000 startups, they are going as fast as they can go. Because they see $1.5 trillion at the end of this rainbow. And they're not going to slow down unless somebody somehow makes them slow down in a way which is verifiable. Can that be done? Yes, that can be done. Is it government exercising too much control? Well, certainly you could argue that. I'm not wild about government control, but there are a few areas, AI, privacy, where we really need regulation and accountability. So, let's move on to the metaverse. The metaverse Metaverse is a technology. It uses AI. It's been around for a long, long time. And it has to do with what's real and what's virtual. I'll tell you a quick story. In the mid-90s, I was at Argonne National Laboratory outside of Chicago as a guest of the lab director. And he took me into the lab. This is one of the Department of Energy's major laboratories. They do a lot of great work. And he said, first I need you to put on some equipment. He gave me this pair of gloves. I put on these virtual reality gloves. He gave me a pair of goggles. I put on the goggles. He opened the door to this big room and he said, you see the dog? And I looked over in the corner, there's a golden lab sitting there on its haunches. He said, let's go over and pet the dog. So I walked over, I petted the dog, and I petted the dog's tail wagged. He said, now take your goggles off. I took my goggles off, there's nothing there. Nothing. It's a big empty room. That's called virtual reality. Now, unfortunately, there has been a vocabulary accident, in my opinion, where, in particular in healthcare, but in really all industries, they're talking about a virtual healthcare visit. Now, if you're sitting in your chair at your desktop or with an iPad, and the doctor is likewise, is that virtual? No, that's real. You know who that doctor is, he knows who you are. That's real, it's not virtual. But I can see that I've lost the battle. All industries have adopted the word virtual to mean remote. They're going to change their mind, or at least they're going to realize my argument, because when the metaverse rolls out, it's going to be quite clear what's the difference between virtual and real. There's virtual reality, I just described, there's augmented reality, AR. Augmented reality is when you take your iPhone, you go to Amazon, you pick out a lamp, And then you click a button and you can put that lamp on your table. See how it looks. See if it fits. See if it matches the color. That's augmented reality. Now, Mark Zuckerberg, a lot of people don't like him. He's one smart young man, I can say that for sure. He's so committed, so focused on metaverse that he renamed the company. Market cap of $200 billion, no problem. Changed the company name, now it's called Meta. And Meta has in its future dominance of the metaverse. And the metaverse is where all these virtual things are, where we're all sitting around in a room wearing goggles, and we're in a party with a lot of people who aren't really people. And there's a lot of games and really silly things going on. But there's also important things going on where a surgeon can hone their skills by wearing virtual reality goggles and seeing an actual patient opened up and can explore the inside of that patient. There's a lot of great things. I believe that Mark was a little too quick to commit the $200 billion company to something that the average person never heard of and doesn't really see a use for unless they're a kid playing games. So it's not just games, as I said, it's going to touch every area. Who's going to win in the metaverse? My opinion, Apple. They've been very quiet, of course, they never pre-announce anything. But it would not surprise me at all. June 5th is their next Worldwide Developer Conference. I'm going to be surprised if they don't introduce a virtual reality headset. You ready for crypto? I didn't put you to sleep yet? Okay, well, crypto, wow. It also is changing by the day. It uses a technology called blockchain. Blockchain is a distributed database. So typically the way the world of information technology has evolved is there's a computer somewhere that has a database on it and people interact with that database. Well, in the world of crypto, there's a distributed database, meaning the database of all the transactions of Bitcoin, for example, are on millions of computers. The identical same database that's out there on millions of computers. And it works through a consensus mechanism. I'll come back to that in a minute. So crypto there's a real terminology issue here. This will help you out at the next cocktail party. There's cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin, Ether, many of them. And then there are tokens. The token is a digital asset. It's made up of zeros and ones. There's no physical thing involved. There's no central authority. People say, well, how can it work when there's no central authority? How can you have a payment mechanism without a central bank? The answer is there's an algorithm. And the algorithms on the blockchains is what makes crypto work. It's secure. Now you hear about various break-ins. The break-ins have not been of the blockchains. The break-ins have been of the exchanges that offer cryptocurrency for sale or purchase. I'm not aware of any instance where a blockchain has been hacked. One of the most important features of blockchain is that when you put something on a blockchain, it becomes immutable. It's my favorite word, immutable. It means you can't change it. That's all it means. You can't do, oops, I didn't mean to do that. Too bad. If you initiate a transaction to send $10 worth of Bitcoin to your next door neighbor, when you hit the button, it's gone. Can't change it. How it works? Well, there's a guy named Satoshi Nakamoto. Maybe. This is a debate. There's a guy in Australia that says he actually is Satoshi Nakamoto. His name is Williams. Whoever he was or is wrote a paper. It's 8 pages, that's all. It's not a 400-page dissertation, it's 8 pages. And when you get this file, you can click there on paper and you can read it 8 pages. I can assure you if you're having trouble sleeping, by the second page you'll be asleep. Another feature of some cryptocurrency is there's a fixed supply. Some people would say this is one of the main advantages of Bitcoin over gold. Gold is in a fixed supply, they're still mining it. We don't know what the ultimate amount of gold is in the world. But with Bitcoin, we know that there are 21 million Bitcoin, and there will never be any more. Right now, there are 19 million. When will we have the last one? 2140. I won't be around. Maybe none of us will be. So that's an important feature. Now, how many of these cryptocurrencies are there? Well, you can start naming them. Okay, there's Bitcoin, there's Ether, Dogecoin, Shiba Inu, and you can rattle off some more. I'm going to show you a list in a minute. It's 23,000 different cryptocurrencies, many of which are actually not currencies, they're tokens, but it's the same concept. The exchanges, that's where the transactions occur. Think of Fidelity, Merrill Lynch, Charles Schwab, and there are digital wallets. If you want to own $100 worth of Bitcoin, you have to have a digital wallet. You can't, there's nothing physical. You can't hang it on the wall. You need a digital wallet. I'll show you one in a minute. Now, one of the things holding up regulation, which again is sorely needed, is a debate with the SEC and the consumer finance people as to what is this crypto? Is it a currency or a security? So let's take a poll. How many think Bitcoin is a currency? 3, 4, 5. How many think it's a security? Okay, about the same, 2 to 3. And probably the rest of you are either bashful or you don't know. And I wouldn't expect you to know. I would expect the SEC to know, however. And finally, Bitcoin has been around. I started buying it in 2013. 2009, I think, is when Satoshi's paper was written. The SEC has basically said, they haven't been crystal clear about it, but basically they've said Bitcoin is, in fact, a currency. But the other 22,999 are not. Maybe a few of them could be a currency. The rest of them are tokens. There's nothing wrong with tokens. The difference between a token and a cryptocurrency is a cryptocurrency can be used as a store of value, like gold, or you can use it to buy something or pay somebody for a service. Whereas a token is an asset. It sits on a blockchain, and then that asset can be sold. It can be used to start a company. There's a lot of purposes for it, but its primary purpose is not to make payments. It's not a currency. So some people now are starting to say Bitcoin's starting to look pretty safe. I would say most people don't feel that way, but if you look at the list of what are called whales, a whale is somebody that buys a lot of Bitcoin, $500 million worth. And the whales, some of them very predominant, like Michael Saylor at the Microscience Company, puts all their cash reserves in Bitcoin. So it's debatable as to whether it's a safe haven. But clearly, all the disruptions that we've had in the banking world and in the crypto world, how has Bitcoin's price responded? It's gone up. Why? Well, nobody knows. Now, here's a summary. Here's a summary of what's going on. So as of March 23rd, Bitcoin was 27,942. It's been as high as 69, almost 69,000. It started at zero, by the way, not that long ago. So when you look at the performance of Bitcoin's value, it's rather spectacular. When I left the condo a while ago, it was around 28,300. Ethereum is another popular crypto. I started to say currency. It's debatable whether it's a currency or a token, but it's popular. And it's gone from nothing to 1803 as of the 23rd. The total of all the cryptos, so you take Bitcoin, it's $540 billion, $500 billion Bitcoin. Ethereum is about $250 billion. The other 23,000 is about 35%. Most of them you shouldn't touch with a 10-foot pole. They're kids just creating a cryptocurrency because they can, because they're smart computer science people and they know how to do it. Some of them claim to have a purpose, but this is where you see disruption in the market and where you see companies fail. Now, I'll show you, these are the cryptocurrencies that I own. And you might say, wait a minute, you just said, I interpreted what you said to mean Bitcoin's the only one that's legitimate, the rest of them are shams. Why are you investing in? Well, I'm not investing much. 96% of my crypto is Bitcoin. And I use 4 different exchanges. Coinbase is the largest US exchange. Crypto.com is in Singapore. Gemini is the Winklevoss brothers, you remember them, who sued Apple or sued Facebook and won a lot of money, and they started this company called Gemini, and Kraken, which is a pretty large exchange. By the way, there's over 300 of these exchanges. I use these 4. Why don't I just use one? Because some certain particular coin I wanted was only available at this particular exchange. So it's different than banking Wall Street. Okay. Squeeze this down a little bit. Okay. So blockchain technology, it's amazing that it's described in 8 pages, but it is, and it's open source. And open source is a very important word. Open source means that the software is free for anybody to look at. You can go to bitcoin.com or just Google it or ask one of the chat bots, what is open source? Open source is software that you can actually look at it. It's not proprietary. You want to look at the code that makes Windows work? Forget it. It's locked up tighter than a drum by Microsoft. Likewise for Apple. Open source software, wide open, anybody can see it. Well, does that make it insecure? No, it makes it more secure. It makes it more secure because if somebody discovers a flaw, they can fix it. Or they put it out on the internet and somebody else will fix it. And it's a collaborative process and it works beautifully. This is how Linux has become the dominant software in the enterprise environment. It runs on mainframes and servers all over the world in every industry. So blockchain also is distributed, I mentioned that. It's consensus-based, so 51% of these millions of computers out there that are managing the Bitcoin mining, it's called Bitcoin mining. It's a bad term. It's basically they're administrators to make sure that transactions are properly processed. And as long as 51% of them agree, then the transaction is blessed. It's correct. Another thing that often gets confusing, people talk about the blockchain. There is no non-blockchain. There's thousands of them. All these 23,000 cryptos, they all have their own blockchain. Most of them are a variation of the Bitcoin blockchain or the Ethereum blockchain, but there's not one, there's many. Now I want to tell you about stable coins. I think you'll hear a lot more in the news about this. A stable coin is pegged. to something. The perfect stable coin, if there is one, is pegged to the US dollar. So if you buy a stable coin for $100, you can sell it for $100. It's fungible. And so it has a purpose in that a lot of people in Palm Coast who work very hard and send money to family in South America or other countries. How do they do that? Well, Western Union's been at this for a long time. Fees can be as high as $45, multiple days of delay. With stablecoin, the one that says USD coin, USDC, that's administered by a company called Circle. A really smart young man, Jeremy Allaire, I've known him for many years, invented this, and his company is doing really well. And they are providing, in partnership with another company, a mechanism to allow people to move money from Palm Coast to Bolivia instantly. None of this takes 3 days to clear through this old-fashioned financial system we have, and the fee is less than $1. So here's the economics. So for the consumer, it's fast and cheap. For Circle, this is just the one example, they take a small fee on the aggregate number of stable coins that are currently on their balance sheet, and they're making money. So it's a little bitty percentage on billions of dollars worth of coins. Now, some of these coins, you see the one that says Terra USD, that's the name of the platform. Their coin is called Luna, Luna. Regrettably, I own a very small amount of that. It turned out to be fraudulent. They were not pegged to the dollar. They were pegged to an algorithm which simulated the value of the dollar by using multiple different currencies and assets, and they used this formula to say that's what it represents. Well, that turned out to be, I wouldn't say a hoax, but, well, yeah, a hoax. And so it's gone. The other big question here is CBDC, Central Bank Digital Coin, stable coin issued by the US Federal Reserve. Well, we just witnessed how quickly they have adapted to changes in the way markets work. The debacle at Silicon Valley Bank didn't happen overnight. It was known as 2 years ago, the vulnerabilities that they had. So is it likely that Treasury and Federal Reserve will move quickly for CBDC? Probably not. Meanwhile, there's 17 countries that have projects underway to utilize these coins. Okay. Blockchain potential. Well, of course, there's the cryptocurrencies. You can buy something with Bitcoin. Most of the merchants who offer to accept Bitcoin, you never heard of. They're little techie companies that aren't really that important. Originally, it was thought that crypto would quickly replace credit cards. And there's two reasons why it didn't. One is the transfer is not fast. And the other is the fee, which was envisioned to be much lower, like half of credit card fees, turned out to be 3 or 4 times credit card fees. So that's really slowed it down. I'm quite optimistic about this because of a new technology called the Lightning Network, which works in conjunction with the Bitcoin blockchain, which will move almost instantly to clear a payment at a fee that's very small, maybe 1%. But what about other kinds of things you could do with the blockchain? So digital artwork, I'm going to say some more about that in a moment. How about deeds? How about car, boat, airplane titles? I sold a vacation property that we've owned for decades in Pennsylvania last summer, and the attorney representing the buyer said, you know, we've researched this and we can't find any record that you paid off this mortgage from 1993. I said, oh yeah, I paid it off 25 years ago. Well, prove it. Well, the way this is supposed to work is that the mortgage company is supposed to record in the county when a new deed is created or when a mortgage is paid off. It's a long story involving a half a dozen banks because mortgages got sold and swapped around, and eventually they found them. But if it had been on a blockchain, it would have been instant. Certificates, birth, death, marriage, votes. You can think of a vote as an asset, and it can be managed like an asset, and that's, I wrote a book about that. DAOs, this is another good cocktail party. DAO is a distributed autonomous organization. What does that mean? A DAO is a crypto-like service on a blockchain which allows the creation of an organization with no headquarters, no central capabilities, all distributed out there across the internet and blockchain. And these people that are part of that can vote on what this company is going to do. What products is it going to sell? How's it going to operate? What is the governance that will be applied for this organization? That's what DAOs is all about. DeFi stands for distributed finance, decentralized finance. And this is to provide financial services like lending, payment, etc., which is done with no central bank. It's just done between participants in a transaction. There's a whole bunch of startups in this area. Some of them, I would say, probably most of them are pipe dreams that are going to go nowhere. But some of them will undoubtedly break through and will have eventually a modernized financial system. None of this takes 3 days to deposit a check kind of thing. Fintech, financial technology, is not just blockchain. It includes blockchain, but also includes traditional internet capabilities. And that's another big startup area where companies are trying to redefine how payment works, how banking works, how loans work, etc. Web3 is an even further out concept of basically evolving the internet as we know it today into something different that is totally distributed. It's not like you just go to google.com. No, it's a distributed network of capabilities. We could spend all day talking about this. IBM and other IT vendors, they're all over blockchain. They're using it basically to make the supply chains out there more accessible, more faster, and more reliable with high integrity. On the right, you see payment. The top payment methods. The high curve there is digital wallets, 45%. And you might say, wow, that doesn't sound right. Well, the reason is because this is global. Global. In the US, no way is it 45%. Although you may have seen in the Wall Street Journal this morning where the banks are upset with Apple because Apple Pay is really catching on big time. Apple's collecting a lot of fees. People love it. You go to Publix, you buy your stuff, you just put your watch down on the terminal, and that's it. You don't have to carry a wallet. We were in Europe last summer, in Norway, Sweden, Estonia, Poland. Never once did I have to take a credit card out of my wallet. Not once. They're so far ahead of us. So this is why these startups are important. Some of them are going to be successful, and there will be breakthroughs. And the big banks are scared. They're investing in startups, by the way. Okay, here's the book about building. Now I want to talk to you about NFTs. This, I believe, is a really hot one. So an NFT is a non-fungible token. So non-fungible. So if I give Sam a $5 bill, and he gives 5 ones to Larry, okay, $5. It's called fungible funds. $1 is $1, $5 is $5. But with crypto, if I give you a crypto coin, who knows what it's going to be worth?
in an hour from now or tomorrow. You don't know. So NFTs are non-fungible tokens. They can be used for a lot of things, like I was saying earlier, deeds, birth certificates, etc. But the big thing going on right now is art. There are millions of incredibly creative artists out there. All ages, all and everything. Incredible talent. How do they hit a home run? How do they get to these major auctions that happen? How do they get to the big players, the brokers? The answer is they don't. But now, with blockchains and NFTs, they have a way. Here's some NFTs. You might say, oh, this looks like junk. Well, the one on the left in the middle, to me, looks like Picasso. It is not Picasso, but it could be. So, a lot of the stuff being produced, millions and millions and millions of pieces of art, digital art. Some of them are weird, some of them are, you might say, offensive, but some of them are incredibly creative. And I'm going to show you. First, the NFTs and art, the world of art, has produced a whole new vocabulary that didn't exist even a few years ago. So when an artist is ready to get their piece of art into the market, they do what's called minting. They mint their picture. And then they drop it on a blockchain. And then they create additions. It could be, this is a one, this piece of art is only one. It's 1 out of 1. Or they might say it's 1 out of 100. And in the market, the value tends to be, in trading, tends to be a little higher if it's in the first 10 as opposed to the last 10. The big leader here is a company called OpenSea. A couple of young guys in New York City started this, they're billionaires now. And they have 1.5 million active monthly users. That includes artists and buyers of art. And they trade $2 billion a month. Now that's a big drop from what it was a year ago. Some people say, see, I told you this was a joke. Well, yeah, it went way down because as the novelty sort of wore off and the FTX debacle occurred and various factors, yeah, it's going down. It's going down to $2 billion a month. That is non-trivial. And Nifty Gateway is what I use for NFTs. And I'm going to show you that. Okay, this is Nifty Gateway. Let me go to my dashboard. Okay, this is my dashboard. These are NFTs which I own, and you can see the information about them. Each one has who's the artist, what's the digital ID of this piece of art, how much did you pay for it. Some of these pieces of art are selling for millions. Millions. That's a little hard to believe, but that's what's actually happening. And there's one that I want to show you. Here we go. This is my favorite. It's called Junk Scope. Look at the detail on this. I think that's really neat. So this NFT was created by a food artist. And I checked this person out. It's a woman who has incredible technology experience and artistic experience. And she has a studio. A lot of artists have studios, but her studio has cameras in the ceiling, it has rotating objects, and she created this. This is a real food, but the result is a piece of art. So what does someone do with an NFT? So if you buy one of these pieces of art, whether it's for $10 million or for $10, what do you do with it? Well, one thing you can do with it is you can display it, show it to others. Another thing you can do is you can print it. And then there's a company on the internet that prints on glass with a beautiful frame, and you hang it somewhere in your house. Or you get a Samsung big screen TV, and you put your entire NFT collection rotating through on this TV screen. Or you use it as an avatar in the metaverse. So you have a piece of art that you assert is you. It represents you in the metaverse. So I'm big on NFTs. Okay, crypto regulation and litigation. This is a hot area right now. The SEC has sent Coinbase what's called a Wells letter. The Wells letter is an SEC term that basically puts the recipient on notice. It doesn't say you're guilty, it doesn't say what they're going to do, but it's warning them that they're going to do something. It's sort of like an indictment in a way. And Coinbase is the largest exchange. They do NFTs, they do Bitcoin, they do a lot of things. They're a very sophisticated company. I've read their governance documents. This is not FTX. This is a real deal, run by very professional people. Watch it, see, could back up tomorrow. But I have a lot of confidence in Coinbase. But the SEC doesn't like what they're doing. They say you're trading in securities that you didn't register. And Coinbase is saying, how would I register them? Do you have a process for me to register? No. So the regulators are trying to eliminate crypto through punitive measures and not acting on what's needed, which is regulation that defines how to set up something in the crypto world to be bought and sold. So this is Congress. They're basically trying to eliminate a very innovative, creative area of endeavor. So Bitcoin challenges, there are a lot of challenges. I mentioned the speed. Forking is a technology issue. I won't bore you with that. Fees are high, but I believe they're going to come down because of the Lightning Network. A lot of environmental concerns. Initially, all the Bitcoin miners were in China, almost all. China kicked them out, said we don't want anything to do with crypto. So they booted them. Where did they go? The United States. And in the United States, where are they setting up these mining operations, which is basically a data center of servers? They're doing it at Niagara Falls, where they can use renewable energy. They're doing it out west, where they can use wind. They're doing a lot of creative things to blunt the attack of people saying this crypto is bad because it uses too much energy. And they're responding by saying, yeah, we use a lot of energy, but it's going to be all renewable energy. We're not burning any coal. So it's going to be a debate that continues. Taxes. The IRS has also been relatively silent. You may have noticed on your 1040, there's a question near the beginning that says, have you engaged in buying or selling any digital cryptocurrency? Yes or no? If you say yes, okay, now what do we do? There's no 1099s to show your transactions. So the IRS really hasn't taken an aggressive action. What they have done is they've gone to the big exchanges like Coinbase and said, give me a list of all your customers who sold more than X of the Bitcoin. We want to see it. So they're making strides, but they're not really, in my opinion, they're not doing the job. In the case of NFTs, they did come out last week with a statement saying that NFTs are an asset, and if you own an NFT and you sell it, it's the same as selling a stock, and the tax will be 28%. No sliding scale, just 28%. Why 28%? Because they assume that it's wealthy people that are buying NFTs. I'm not sure that's correct, but that's the logic. Okay, so now there's the digital wallet. So on the left, that's the Apple wallet with all the various goodies. On the right is a crypto.com wallet. And it shows a bunch of different cryptos, and on the right it shows the current price of that. And then if you click on one of those, Ether, for example, it shows you the trading history of that. And if you click trade, then you can buy more, or you can sell it, or you can transfer it to a different wallet. You can transfer it from your Gemini wallet to your Coinbase wallet. All the wallets need to be connected to a bank account. This is what scares off a lot of people. They would put their toe in the water with crypto, but they really don't want to connect their bank account. Some people have opened a separate bank account. They put $100 in it and say, I'll just play around with this. The worst thing that can happen is I lose $100. Okay, then near the end. Healthcare. Well, I think we all know the number one problem is cost. You can slice and dice 1,000 issues and problems with healthcare, but the number one thing is cost. There's also a quality issue. By the way, on the cost, we spend between 2 and 3 times per capita of what is spent in Europe, in developed countries. And you can't say, well, that's because our healthcare is better. That's not necessarily true. In fact, if you look at the quality, number one cause of death in America, cardiac. Number 2, cancer. Number 3, hospitals. Now, there's a lot of debate going on about this. We have a hospital executive here. I'm sure he loves hearing this. But the fact is that a big study done by Johns Hopkins revealed that in 2018 there were 250-some thousand people that died from medical errors. And these medical errors are mostly preventable. And this, as I mentioned earlier, expert systems, and AI, and machine learning, and a number of these technologies can actually be used to improve the quality in healthcare. I'm quite optimistic about that. Inefficiency, the pharmacy benefit manager. Has anybody in the room ever felt like, boy, am I glad I have a pharmacy benefit manager? Do I get a lot of value from that? No, there's no value from that. The value is for insurers, pharma. We get nothing from it. So if you go to Amazon Pharmacy, you can illustrate this problem very nicely. If you consider levothyroxine, which is the most prescribed medication in the United States, you go to Amazon Pharmacy and you go to check out, and if it uses your insurance, it costs $15. If you just use your Prime membership, it's $2. How could that be? Well, it's easy. Amazon doesn't use pharmacy benefit managers. They go to the drug manufacturer and they say, we would like you to give us your best and final price for 10 million doses of levothyroxine. And they pass that savings along. Paper and faxes, still, the fax machine is lingua franca in the healthcare industry. Every office you call anywhere in the United States, you reach a message. It's going to say, press 1 for our fax number. That's the number one thing. Name another industry where that's true. There is none. So there's a lot of inefficiency. And the cost of these inefficient processes, we're talking trillions here, not billions, trillions. Big Pharma sells 4,500 medications to Medicare. And so politicians are taking a victory lap. Oh, we won this one. We passed the bill. We're going to enable Medicare to negotiate the price of drugs. Yeah. Beginning in 2026, they'll be able to negotiate the price on 6 drugs. So pharmacy lobby outsmarted them and is the winner. Big Pharma is saying, if you do that to us, we won't be able to develop new drugs. I have a simple answer for that. Stop spending $6 or $8 billion on TV ads that just carpet bomb us all day long that we don't need. All we gotta do is ask ChatGPT, what do I do for a toe fungus? And you'll find out. You don't need Big Pharma to tell you you have to buy this tube of this drug for toe fungus, which had an efficacy of somewhere around 35%, with very high profit margins. So I think it's really bad. Okay, space. Falcon 9, did you see the launch yesterday? They're doing 4 a week now. They've done over 200 successful launches. This is SpaceX, Elon Musk's company. And this Falcon 9 had a lot of failures in the beginning, but they mastered it because of the leadership and brilliant people that work there. And now they're using the booster rocket, the bottom part of the rocket, the booster, they're using it over and over and over again, saving millions of dollars. And I'm sure you've seen the movies of it coming back to Earth and landing on a barge, even in a rough sea. It's really spectacular. The big thing coming is Starlink. There's a picture of it at the bottom. That's just the top half. That's 200 feet high. The booster that it's going to sit on top of is also 200 feet. So this 400 feet high Starship this year is going to go into orbit, I'm predicting. And that's just one step on the way to the moon, which is one important step on the way to Mars. So lastly, Relativity is a startup, a space startup, of which there are many, run by a 32-year-old CEO. 85% of their rocket is 3D printed. They just launched it last week for the first time. It did not make it to orbit, but it almost made it to orbit. That was their first attempt at it. So a lot of exciting things happening there. NASA has a program called Artemis, and that's the game plan to get to Mars. The focus right now is to get to the moon. You may have seen in the news this week that Chinese rover, which is on the southern side of the moon, has found particles, microscopic particles that contain water. And they believe there's trillions of gallons of water on the moon embedded in these tiny microscopic particles. If that's true, that's going to get us to Mars because they're going to be able to extract that water and convert the H2O to rocket fuel. And lastly, thousands of exoplanets. Thousands. An exoplanet is a planet that kind of looks like Earth and kind of feels like Earth and smells like Earth and really might be exactly like Earth. So could any of those thousands of exoplanets have life, intelligent life on them? I don't know, could be. Okay, the last thing before we go into Q&A, some things I'm working on. It's all about attitude. That's the 6-book attitude series. I didn't bring any of them this year to push you around to buy one. But if anybody buys any of my 6 books between now and through the weekend, by the way, it's available in paperback, hardcover, Kindle, and 4 of them in Audible. I will take the full price of those times 2, send it to John Zubers at Advent Health to help finish the hospital week. Digital patient experience at Advent Health is something I spend a lot of time on. This is a group of executives at Advent Health. They have 7 hospitals in 2 states. Connecticut, and New York. And this group of 16 people, which includes me, I was formerly a member of the board at the hospital. Now I'm just an outsider. I'm the voice of the patient. And the chief medical information officer at New Vance Health and I co-authored an article about mHealth. It's about the digital patient experience. So if you're interested in that, it describes how healthcare could be, how it could be more like Amazon and less like AT&T. I'm also spending a lot of time with startups. I'm so enthusiastic about the ideas that are out there. Every day there are new ones. And I use these crowdfunding platforms. There's 4 of them you see here: Start Engine, Funders Club, WeFunders, and there are many more. But every day they get new startups, and they are raising the money through an SEC-approved approach. And you can invest in some cases as little as $100. And you look at a company and say, well, I really like that idea. I'm going to invest $100. Or you can invest, if you're an accredited investor, you can invest much more. Then I'm still working on Legos and my weekly debrief, which currently goes out to about 1,100 people, including a number of you in the room. If you're not receiving it, just visit johnpatrick.com and you'll get it. The story coming out the day after tomorrow, it comes out every Saturday morning at 6:30, is one I've written about face recognition, how it works in layman terms. And lastly, I keep saying lastly, at the end there is the URL. So this presentation is at johnpatrick.com/techtalk12.pdf. All right, well, thanks very much for your attention. Let's go to the questions.
Every now and then you see on the internet hints that they're using digital money, including with the dollar bill, and you can track where you spend your money, how you spend your money, how much money you have, etc. Is that done?
Yeah, that's just the stable coin. In China, they have a digital coin. And you can believe they track every penny you spend and where you spend it and how much you have. And, so that's part of the debate. We need a digital currency in America. Otherwise, everything's going to go offshore to Europe and Asia. And I don't know soon. This is about 10 years away. This is going to happen. But you got to get Congress. This subject has been under the purview House Financial Services Committee, chaired by Maxine Waters, who has zero experience in business, zero experience in technology. They have 54 members on the committee, and they can't agree on anything. And so startups are going to end up going to Europe. What else? Lydia. TikTok. My view on TikTok is a little different. I think what they're trying to do is not going to happen. They can't force ByteDance, the parent company in China. They can't force them to sell it. But the CEO, who got badgered to death by the Senate, he's a Harvard MBA. This is no flake, the CEO of TikTok. And he has offered to create a firewall which would block any information that TikTok collects from the kids and some older people too, that will be blocked and will not go to China. The Congress doesn't believe it. They literally call him a liar in the testimony. So that's my solution. The current status is like several other things I showed, question mark, of Congress. Small businesses love TikTok. Small people that are selling, not Samsung wall TV, creative little things, kitchen gadgets, clothing items, shoes. And so if they ban TikTok, which first of all, I don't think it's possible, but if they try, they're just going to make small business mad. Not to speak of a couple 100 million teenagers. I don't know,
I have a friend who sends
Yeah, there's a lot of bad stuff. It's not a perfect medium. And again, we need regulation on privacy. I mean, social media is basically an unregulated Wild West that tracks us. If you visit Facebook to see your grandchildren or something, if you go through some of the menus to see what information does Facebook have about me, you'll be appalled. It's not just about you, it's about all your friends and their phone numbers and everywhere you've ever been. And it's really bad news. What else? Yes, ma'am.
Are password managers free? Password managers, you showed that slide way
Oh,
in the beginning.
our password manager is free. Google's password manager is free, yes. One password is not free. But it's not a lot of money. I think it's for a family membership, it's like $49 a year. Good one.
John, I just want to know, how do you find the time to do all the things that you do and read all the information you read?
It's a very simple answer. He said, how do I find time to do all these things I've been talking about? It's easy. I don't play golf.
Good answer.
What else? Yes, ma'am.
I have a question about comfort level, because what's happened to me, and probably most of the people in the room, is it seems like a device takes over. So you get onto a website and all of a sudden they're asking for permission to track your stuff. And if you don't stop and go to their box that you check what they're allowed to do, usually I just only what's absolutely necessary. But if you're in a hurry, so I have this terrible dis-ease over stopping and doing this. And it's more and more, maybe because it is based on that privacy. But for instance, when I booked this, to come to this talk, a little thing came up on the app that said, do you want to put this in your calendar? Yes. All of a sudden, I've got every event ever for Hammock Dunes on my calendar, and I keep taking it off, and every time I go back to the app, it's back in. So it's this daily irritation or frustration with newer technology that it just seems to take over like a robot.
I totally agree with everything you said. I would boil it down to two issues. One is there are a lot of websites that don't work properly and apps that don't work properly. And there are industries like the golf and country club industry, private aviation industry, a lot of sort of what you might consider niche industries. They don't have good software. The vendors have been providing 1980s style mainframe modified apps, and they're not good. The other issue in what you said has to do with our privacy, and you can make things really private, but it's very hard to do. It's hard to understand. It's hard to figure out the steps that you take, and so we just capitulate and let them spy on us. That's why we need regulation. The regulation has to include, not only do you have to stop spying on people, but it's not good enough to say, go visit facebook.com/help, and you're on your own to figure out how to, no, you have to do it for them and make it easy. That has to be part of the regulation. Sir.
Could you explain the concept of cookies, and when you get on the website, they ask if you accept the cookies, or is that why? Should you delete them from time to time?
Yeah, so the question's about cookies. There's a cookie right back here in the last row. Different kind of cookie. Cookies were invented by a kid out at University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign. And they built the first browser called Mosaic. And it was very nice at surfing the web. But if you wanted to do e-commerce on the web, you wanted to have a way of state, it's called, state. In other words, if I log into the system Is he gonna remember what I did the last time? Where I was in the middle of buying something and power failure and I had to start over again? I have to re-enter all that information if you have cookies. So the cookie stores information about what you're doing. And that's a good thing because it enables the state to be protected. And so when you come back in the next time, it knows you, so to speak. Now GDPR in Europe, mentioned earlier, they sliced and diced this and said, well, there's cookies and then there's cookies. There's different kinds of cookies. There's cookies that do what I just described, but there are other cookies that make things go faster. There are other cookies that make it more secure. There are other cookies that enable us to spy on you. They don't say it that way, of course. And so all these pop-ups that we're all getting saying, we use cookies, do you want to agree? Well, again, it's a matter of time. How much time do you want to spend on this to understand what they mean by these 4 different kinds? So most people just capitulate. I'll take it all. That's what I do. You shouldn't do it, but it takes too much time to master it. But cookies have a good purpose, an original purpose. What else?
Where did you say on your website this presentation is?
What's that?
On your website, where is this presentation?
Right there. johnpatrick.com/techtalk12.pdf. Yeah, it's there right now. Yes, sir.
I wanted to hear what your thoughts were on delaying AI for 6 months, like with you mentioned Steve.
I'm sorry, on what?
With Steve Wozniak and Elon Musk
Yeah.
delaying AI about 6 months, I want to know what your thoughts were on that.
Yeah, well, the letter is very well articulated. It's like 3 paragraphs. And basically what they're saying is the world is at peril here. If we allow this race to get the biggest, fastest, smartest AI smarter than humans, we're going to have big problems, as we discussed earlier. So what they say is, let's just pause. Everybody stop what you're doing. Take ChatGPT-4, which is the latest version of OpenAI's chatbot. Consider that to be the norm. And don't make anything better than that for 6 months. And they did a great job of articulating exactly what they mean. There's the pause, of course, but then there's a public accountability that enables independent third parties to be able to see if, in fact, they did pause, and add some culpability and accountability if they violate that. So it's a great letter, but as I said before, I wish I could be more optimistic. I don't believe Congress is capable. Somebody the other day said, if you go to visit the Senate, you think you're an assisted living home. Just nothing happened. Goodbye.
Yeah, and the value of Bitcoin once told me it could be anywhere from 0 to 300,000. Haven't been wrong yet. So the question is, where do we go from here? If you think in terms of the price, if there's going to be a limited number, 23, 40, or whatever it is, logically you think that it would be going up after that time, limited supply and demand. So if you're a young person, you think you want to be invested in that, keep accumulating, it's going to be going up at some point. Do you agree with that?
The question is about the price of Bitcoin. It's been as high as 69,000, and right now it's 29,000. What's it going to be tomorrow? Nobody knows. But what's so hard about this? Well, nobody saw Silicon Valley Bank collapsing. If they had looked, they would have seen the signs were there. With Bitcoin, there's some differences. It's not an American thing. It trades 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. So it's always around the clock. It's trading everywhere in the world. So there's no simple thing to say, well, is this something happened in California? What's that going to do to Bitcoin? Well, maybe nothing, but maybe something. And if you read CoinDesk is a good news source on crypto. And so is Coinbase, by the way. A lot of good articles there where you can learn as much as you want to learn. But really, the forecasts for Bitcoin literally range from $1 million is the highest forecast I've seen, $1 million by 2030, or zero. And you listen to people like Charlie Munger. Charlie's no dummy. He calls Bitcoin rat poison. Jamie Dimon calls it a fraud. Could it be because Jamie Dimon gets $75 billion in fees from consumers to pay for services that involve simply moving some ones and zeros back and forth? And then you got everything in between. So I really can't answer it. I don't know where it's going to go. I can tell you what I did. I started buying it in 2013. Every Monday morning I bought Bitcoin. 2017, the end of the year, sold half of it, holding the rest, and I'm still holding the rest. Although occasionally I give some to the hospital. Which, by the way, with $1.2 trillion of crypto out there, this is a beautiful target for philanthropy. I won't take the time to explain how you do it. It's very complicated because a hospital doesn't want to touch it with a 10-foot pole, but they do want the value of it. So you have to go through various steps to do it, but it can be done. Well, looks like we're out of time. Oh, one more.
One more.
Sure.
I have a love-hate relationship with AOL. I've been an AOL user for maybe 25 years. In the earlier years, they allowed you to have 3 screen names. So you're going to have to go ahead and name change to remarriage. It wouldn't let me change my name. I had to end my AOL account that I was paying $11.99 a month for and start a new account for $14.99 a month. Then I wanted to get into AOL Desktop Gold. It has more features, so now I'm paying an extra $6.99 a month. I still love it but hate it. Do you like AOL? Everybody had it in the early years, and I hardly know anyone that has it anymore.
Yeah, well, it's been around a long time, as you know. I remember dinner with Steve Case way back. He was the founder of it. And he made a fortune by selling out to CNN. And like you say, AOL, a lot of people use it, but it's not growing. It's arguably not as secure as Google. I mean, if you asked 1,000 people which is best of all the providers, way more than half would say Gmail, Google. They're very aggressive at identifying spam, and at times they're a little too aggressive. So you really now you have to look at your spam folder every day to see there might be something important there. It's a messy world. They all work. AOL, Microsoft.
I do have Gmail. I started that with my name change for a few months.
Yeah, well, if you have a
It's not
Gmail.
user-friendly for me, with copying and pasting and
Yeah, so here's a short path for that. So if you have a Gmail account, go to your AOL account, go into settings, and tell it to forward any mail that comes into your AOL account, just forward it over to a Gmail account. And then you can tell people you're doing that, and over time, they'll learn your correct email address.
thank you.
Okay, well, thanks very much. Great to be here.
Yeah, nice to see you, Joey. And I'll say hello to Valerie now. Yeah, you're leaving payables 2 days away. You're leaving on Saturday. We haven't decided. Easter's like pretty close. We could have. Yeah. Well, great to see you, Joanne. Safe travels on Saturday. Yeah. Now you won't be back until December, right? Oh, yeah, right. You're right. Yeah, John's leaving with you on Saturday, right? Yeah, right. Hello, Tommy. Charlie, how are you? Good. When you head north.
Saturday.
Have a good trip. Tell John I enjoyed it.
Up to see the
Weather's been at least they don't have wet, rainy, and too like that stuff. So. Yeah. All right. I'll see you. I'll see you in the fall.
Yep, for sure. I want you to meet my nephew. He's taking over child business. He's my business. So this is what trying to do.
This is it.
He's taking over and trying to play with
He will be.
Oh, very soon. Very soon.
Nice seeing you.
That's right. So far, wait. I love you so much. Yeah, you understand. Joanne? Oh, no, I